What is a stump speech? It's a special kind of speech given by candidates who are running for public office. If that's what you wanted to know, now you have your answer. If you'd like to know more, stay with me because I got a lot to share about that subject. Basically, we're going to talk here about how it's used, what goes in it, and then we're going to spend a lot of time talking about how to do one well. And we're going to start about how it's used. There was a reporter who covered John Kennedy's 1960 campaign for president. He was with Kennedy for months on end, covering the candidate for his newspaper. And on the last day of the campaign, as Kennedy gave his final speech, he turned to a colleague and said, "I have heard that speech now 250 times, and not once has he said it exactly the same way." That is a stump speech. That's what candidates do, because candidates have to speak, and candidates running in large jurisdictions have to do it 3, 4, and 5, and sometimes 6 times a day. And they don't have a special speech for every occasion. They have what we call a stump speech. Now, what goes into a stump speech? I'm going to go through the elements of what makes a good one. You might want to grab a pen and take some notes. Number 1 is the introduction to the speech. Now, there are many ways to start a speech. You can tell a startling fact, you can tell a joke and make people laugh, but one of the most effective ways to begin a speech is to tell a story, because the minute you start telling a story, your audience starts to engage, because we humans were trained from childhood to like stories. Now, the best stories to start a stump speech is a story about something that happened in your life that made you passionate about fixing a problem that is relevant to voters. That is a great beginning. I just crafted one for a candidate not long ago, and we began with the story of her childhood, growing up with working class parents who thought that the most important thing in her life was a great education, to make sure she got one, and how she became a medical doctor, fully certified, at the young age of 24 years old. The story captivated the people because she was telling a story that made her passionate about fixing schools, which was relevant to her audience. The second component of your stump speech is what you're going to do for people. And I generally always recommend to candidates, they do no more than 3 or 5, but here would be an example. Someone says, "We got a crime problem in this jurisdiction. I know it's a problem. This is how we're going to fix it. We got an education problem in this district where this is how we're going to fix it. We have a district that suffers from underemployment and substandard wages. We need better jobs here, and here's how we're going to do that." That is the substance of someone's stump speech that I worked on a few months ago. So what you choose to talk about depends on what you're running for and what is relevant to the people you are trying to appeal to. But part of your stump speech is what you're going to do with the power that you're asking people to give you. Third element of a stump speech is something about your moral code and what makes you tick. People know intrinsically that you're going to have to make lots of decisions on their behalf. They would like to know your notions of right and wrong and the belief system that will guide the decisions that you are going to have to make. Third component of a stump speech is just a little about your qualifications, what you've done in your life. And you can use experience that you've had in your life to illustrate your qualifications. If you've run a business, if you've raised a family, if you have done something miraculous, And for a community, if you have served in nonprofit or community service organization, if you once fixed a vexing problem in your community, that is the fourth element of your stump speech, and there's one more. Usually candidates close their stump speech with a section that talks about why they are the best choice or a better choice than the people running against them. It's called the compare and contrast phase that usually comes at the end of a stump speech. Now, your mileage may vary in how you construct yours, but I will tell you, after I watched a candidate accept the nomination of her party in a 45-minute address, her name was Kamala Harris, I printed a copy of her speech. And every paragraph, one way or another in that 45-minute speech, centered on one of those 5 elements that I just mentioned. So that is the outline of a stump speech. That said, now let's talk about how you make your stump speech eloquent and elegant, and how you use the words that you say to trigger human emotion so that people remember you. Elegance and eloquence is so often missing from speeches given today because they lack hope, they lack vision. Don't make that mistake. So when I say touch people's emotions, what are the human emotions? They are happiness, sadness, anger, fear, disgust, contempt, surprise. If you can trigger any one of those 7 emotions with your words, you change the way people feel, you change the way they think, you change sometimes the way they behave. It is the secret sauce of speeches throughout the history of humankind that have been used for both good and evil, but the ones that we remember fondly in the history books are those who used their words for good. That is one of the secrets of having a great stump speech. I'll mention also in passing that your stump speech should always have a call to action. Now, it's implied in your speech that you want people to vote for you. Do you want them to volunteer for you? Do you want them to knock on doors for you? Do you want them to give money to you? Do you want them to go on social media and share your posts? If you want them to do those things, mention it in your stump speech, because if you do, you'll find they may be standing in line to volunteer for your campaign when you're done. I mentioned the history of humankind. I'm also going to mention something about the usefulness of speaking when you're running for office. Politics is kind of a different profession than any other. If you want to be the CEO of General Motors, you're going to have to work at the company for 20 years to ever get the job, and you got to go up the chain of command. But if you are a great speaker, you will find that you can elevate the ladder in politics really, really fast. And I'll turn your attention to some of the most eloquent and greatest speakers in the history of the United States. Abraham Lincoln came to power because of his ability to put words together and move people. Franklin Roosevelt became president because he offered people hope at a time when many had none. Lyndon Johnson had a landslide victory in 1964 because he spoke to the people who had been left behind and had a grand vision for a nation that included helping old people get health care and expanding health care for the poor. Ronald Reagan came to power in part because of the eloquence of his words and the hope and the vision he offered a country. Barack Obama went from political figure in Chicago to become a United States senator, and a short time later, a 2-term president, in part because of his ability to speak and move people on the campaign trail. Nobody is born with that kind of talent. but you can develop that kind of talent if you work at it. If you'd like to get involved in politics, make your mission numero uno, learn to speak well. If you would like to know more about this subject, in the link below is the perfect video for you to watch next. How to write a campaign stump speech. Grab a pen, go watch it now, and take notes. Oh, by the way, if you're thinking of running for office, I got the perfect gift for you in the link below. It's called 12 Essential Steps to Preparing for a Political Campaign. Go grab your copy when this video is over.